Ken Trahan of the Jewish Federation of Greater New Orleans, and visiting with two people that have opted to do a lot of great things in this community, one of which we'll talk about today. Arnie Fielkow, who, of course, is responsible for running this organization and has done a great job in many capacities over an extended period of time. And also a lady that we're very fond of meeting today, Emily Schoenbaum, who has a father who's been very significant in football over the years. Emily, I'll start with you. First of all, welcome. It's great to have you with us. I mentioned your dad. Football, synonymous with your dad. Talk a little bit about who he was and what he did.
My dad was Alex Schoenbaum. He was born in Petersburg, Virginia in 1915. I think he pursued an athletic career because he was one of the few Jews in Petersburg, Virginia, and got beat up routinely. So he had to be bigger than the next guy. So he went on to pursue an athletic career, went to Kiski School in Pennsylvania on a free ride to do an athletic scholarship, and then he went on to play football at Ohio State.
And talk a little bit about that. He was an offensive lineman, in particular left tackle. We know that as a position where you're responsible for the quarterback's blind side. So clearly he had to be a very tough guy in all capacities.
Yeah, well, it was back when they played both sides. So he was largely the defensive end, but he was very successful at it and became the Grantland All-American Award winner in 1937. He also played the All-Star game against with the Cleveland Rams and the New York Giants in 1939. And right, I actually have a jersey from that game.
I'm going to let you get it right now because we want people to see this. This is very special.
Here are the trousers with his name embroidered on the backside here. And this was his number 40 was his number.
Typical lineman jersey, number 40.
It's actually made of wool, and it survived all these years. So I can't speak for the synthetic they wear today that it would survive.
Special, very special indeed. Arnie Fielkow with us as well. And Arnie, first and foremost, we appreciate what you do and support, and our prayers continue to be with you, my friend.
Thank you, Kenny. It's wonderful to be with you today, and to be with such a good friend with Emily, to be able to honor her father and to talk about the legacy. I am privileged right now to be the CEO of the Jewish Federation, and we're doing so many good things within the community, trying to help get the word out about who we are and what we do. And I happened to meet Emily probably about 6 months ago and learned a little bit about her family and the incredible philanthropy that they do in New Orleans and throughout the country, about the founding of Shoney's restaurant, which is from the Schoenbaum family. And then lo and behold, as we started talking about my career in sports, we morphed into her father. And to be able to have an athletic background and to be a great player with Ohio State, we just thought what a fitting tribute to be able to honor Alex and Emily and her entire family today.
Yeah, the Jewish Federation of Greater New Orleans, talk about the mission as a whole.
Well, we are the umbrella organization for the Jewish community of the Greater New Orleans, which encompasses Orleans and Jefferson and all of the parishes surrounding it. We do a lot of philanthropy. We support many agencies, Jewish and non-Jewish alike. We provide a lot of social services through those agencies, and we're really branding ourselves in a much more broader way now. We're forming relationships with the African American community, the Hispanic community. We're doing a lot of initiatives community-wide. We just want to make sure that we are part of the New Orleans community and the fabric of our great community, and I think we're doing that right now.
Talk about the scholarship program. You mentioned St. Augustine, African American community. Talk about what the scholarship program is all about, what it entails, and why you've opted to get involved in this.
Sure. Well, St. August, as everybody knows, is a historic school here in New Orleans, and we approached them and said, as part of our Jewish African American outreach efforts, we really wanted to do something with the school. And after meeting with school leadership, we came up with the idea of 2 scholarships that we'll be awarding each year. This year on December the 12th, we're going to do a terrific event at the school, and we're going to focus on not only the awarding of the scholarships, but we're going to focus on the commonality between the Jewish and the African American communities in the aftermath of what happened in Charleston a year ago and Pittsburgh just a few weeks ago. And the winners will be writing stories and applications bringing together those 2 tragedies and the commonality of our communities. And then we're going to have a wonderful panel discussion with the students involving the topic of unity and commonality in the aftermath of the shootings.
There's so much that really does join together here, because when, as Emily referred to, with her dad being bullied when he was young because of his faith, that is largely what's happened in the African American community over years, discrimination and mistreatment. I'd like to think our country has gotten better, but there's still that involved. So clearly there's commonality here.
Well, there's no question. You know, I've said this publicly over the last few weeks when I've spoke at different events. Hate is hate, and it's very important that that people stand up when we see hate or discrimination, or racism or anti-Semitism, because when one attacks one community, it's an attack of all. And again, I think it's important when you look at what happened in Charleston, look what happened in Pittsburgh. The commonality is people really were hateful. And I think we've got to be able to stop that. We've got to, as a country and as a community, to be able to put our foot down and say we're not going to tolerate it.
With your father's name on it, Alex Schoenbaum,
Yes.
Why is this important to you?
He liked to encourage people in many ways, largely through scholarship programs. And he knew that he got a leg up, and he likes to pay it forward, and he did that his entire life. He had scholarships at Shoney's, which he founded in 1947. He also had scholarships for every school he touched, whether it was culinary, athletic, overseas. And it's absolutely beautiful, all the lives that he touched. People's lives were transformed. And I hope that this encourages that for these gentlemen as well.
And then the partnership between the Jewish Federation and St. Augustine High School. Why is that important to you?
I think a lot of history has been lost between what has transpired between the African American community and the Jewish community, and I think it's time we come together and start talking about our history and forging relationships with them and others in the community.
And Arnie, talk a little bit about the obligations that exist here between the Jewish Federation and the St. Augustine High School partnership.
Well, I think it's a new partnership. I'm very excited about it. You know, I've known St. Aug obviously since I moved to the city, and the academic reputation that they have, the athletic reputation is phenomenal. So I think it's a natural partnership. I just want to follow up on what Emily just said. There were historic ties between the African American and Jewish communities, obviously going back decades to the Civil Rights Movement and before. Some of those ties have been fractured over the years through different reasons, and I think it's important that we try to pick up the pieces and we bring people together and we educate. Just last week, Kenny, we took 100 students on the 8th annual civil rights trip to Alabama. By the way, supported by Emily and her family. It was amazing to be able to watch these kids go see living history, see the civil rights sites themselves. They were able to go to the 16th Street Baptist Church, where 4 girls were killed in a bombing in the 1960s. In the Civil Rights Museum, there's an Anne Frank tree now planted across the street from the Civil Rights Museum. The only element within that park that's allowed for outside of civil rights. And it brought together the Jewish African American connection in such a living, interactive way. And this is the 8th time we've taken that trip, and I'm always amazed to watch these kids live history and see it on their own, and they come back years later and say, boy, it's something that I'll never forget.
The assembly on December the 12th at St. Augustine. Talk about what it will entail, what will take place then?
Well, we're still a little bit in the planning phases, but the plan right now is on December the 12th at 10:30 in the library at St. Aug. We're going to have an assembly with all the students at the school. It's going to be led by two faith leaders, one African American and one rabbi. And they're going to, again, talk about commonality and unity. And they're talking about Pittsburgh and Charleston. We will award the scholarships. And then the faith leaders will lead a discussion among the students about how do we bring our historic communities together. And we're going to follow that hopefully with a really nice luncheon, and we anticipate a large crowd. Elected leaders will be invited and be in attendance, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And then obviously we'll award the two scholarships to the students. And one of the key elements of the scholarship is that the students that receive it will work throughout the next year within the Jewish African American community on some joint projects together. So they'll have an ability to actually interact, with the communities themselves, which I think is very important.
And I think, Emily, what's most important here is the spirit of cooperation and the ability to translate across boundaries here, because whether it's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, whatever it may be, we need to have not only, my God teaches me, not only a level of tolerance, but of understanding and love. And that's clearly what this is all about.
Oh, I agree, absolutely. I think we're only here for one purpose, and that is to give. And when you realize that, your life becomes very much more enriched. And it doesn't matter what religious philosophy you come from. That's why we're here.
No question about it. Arnie, final thought, too, with regard to that. When I get involved in all kinds of ecumenical, multi-denominational ministry events, because I feel that it's very important for people to come together and to work together. And I know that's what's on your heart. If one person in the Catholic community or in the Christian community comes to Judaism, that's great. That's not truly what this is all about at all, is it?
No, this is, there's no efforts to convert people to different religions. This is, I think it's really important, especially in a city like New Orleans, where we have this great gumbo of people, that multi-faith communities come together and work together. Obviously, within our community, the Catholic Charities and our Archdiocese and many other faiths have done great work. I'd like to believe and do believe that the Jewish Federation, Jewish community, likewise have done historic work. We've been around more than 100 years. Mm-hmm. So the effort here of St. Aug and the Jewish Federation and Emily and her father, the effort is to bring us together, to talk about areas that we have commonality with, to have honest dialogue about maybe where over the years there's been a little bit of a fracture, and how do we bring it back together. And I'm really excited. This is the beginning of many efforts that we have going right now between Jewish and African American, and I just want to thank Emily and her family for her support and encouragement. They have been with us from the very beginning, and I think we're at the beginning of a really great partnership between St. Aug, our Jewish Federation, and the entire Jewish and African American communities of New Orleans.
It is, all in the name of Alex Schoenbaum, a special man, a special family with Emily. Now about that Ohio State Northwestern thing. You want to settle that now or not?
Well, that's really funny that we didn't know this until we walked in, but I'm a Northwestern grad, so obviously we play for the Big Ten Championship. We are probably going to get demolished Saturday night by Ohio State, but as Emily knows, in sports, sometimes you walk on a sports field and you never know what will happen. So I'll be cheering for purple. You'll be cheering for scarlet and gray, and we'll see. Well, the best team win on Saturday night.
Only one of these schools calls themselves correct?
The Ohio State University, yes. Well, I was indoctrinated by Woody Hayes. I used to sit in the president's box as a child, so I really don't have a choice in the matter. I'm voting red.
I understand. And I'm voting purple. All right.
And I'm in the middle and I'm wearing green. Whatever. It's all good. Arnie Fielkow, thank you so much. We appreciate everything that you do. Happy holidays to you. And we thank you so much, Emily, for what you do. And in your father's name, this legacy will continue for many years.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us.